So Samsung's Galaxy S23 Ultra and Apple's iPhone 15 Pro Max are arguably two of the best smartphones available here at the end of 2023. And now that I've had enough time to use and compare each of these flagships in my everyday life, I want to take a few minutes to discuss with you some of the key differences and maybe even help you decide which of these phones is right for you. So sit back, subscribe, and let's get started, starting with price. So for the S23 Ultra at this point in time, it can be pretty easy to find this expensive flagship at a discounted price since it was released back in February of this year, but for the sake of simplicity in this video, we'll stick with its retail price of $1,200, and the just released iPhone 15 Pro Max also retails for $1,200, and both of these phones are packed with 8GB of RAM and 256GB of storage, which sets us up for a perfect pound-for-pound comparison here. Now, if you were around to catch my matchup of this S23 Ultra against last year's 14 Pro Max, then you'll know that I gave the upper hand to the Ultra, as it was simply the superior phone from a hardware perspective, given its superior camera system, in addition to Apple's Pro Max iPhones at the time continuing to be too heavy and hefty for their own good. However, on this year's 15 Pro Max, Apple has addressed my primary concerns head on with a significantly reduced weight of around 222 grams, a surprisingly versatile 5x optical camera lens that puts this phone back in the conversation of being one of the best camera arrays on a smartphone here at the end of 2023, and some well overdue refinements such as more rounded sidings for a way better feeling in the hand, the Type-C port for some added versatility, however still providing its fair share of headaches in typical Apple fashion that I'll get into in a minute, with a similar sentiment revolving around the all-new action button, as it also has its strengths and weaknesses, but all things considered from a physical perspective, this is hands down the best iPhone release in recent memory, with the slimmed down form factor making this 15 Pro Max way more comfortable and enjoyable to use and interact with on an average everyday basis, so much to the point that I now prefer the feeling of this 15 Pro Max over my S23 Ultra, given its sharper corners and what feels like a noticeably larger footprint, even though only 1/10 of an inch of screen size is what differentiates these two phones on paper. And as silly as it sounds, the 15 Pro Max's drastic physical footprint changes make rocking a case on this phone a lot more reasonable, which is where today's sponsor Rhinoshield comes in with their extensive lineup of cases now available for the iPhone 15, such as their Solid Suit series, which comes in 16 different colors with shock absorption and MagSafe compatibility, alongside more rounded edges and a curved backing for their best grip yet. The Mod NX modular case, which has quickly grown to be my personal favorite, with excellent protection, good feel in the hand, and the ability to either remove the backplate entirely and use it as a bumper case, or swap between countless backplate options found on their website. There are countless customization options down to the choice of buttons, which by the way are very satisfying to press, in addition to an anti-yellowing clear case, which is now 23% thinner while still offering the same 11 feet of drop protection that all of Rhinoshield's cases offer, and a carbon case available for both the 15 and S23 Ultra. And Rhinoshield offers a ton of accessories you can bundle along with your case, one of my favorites being their Aqua Stand aluminum water bottle with MagSafe on the top. So check out the first link in the description and use code SHANE10 for 10% off your purchase, and a huge thanks to Rhinoshield for sponsoring this video. Now, despite all of these physical refinements making this matchup a lot closer than I originally anticipated, I still feel that the displays of these two flagships couldn't be any more different from one another. While the 15 Pro Max now has a very impressive viewing experience outside in direct sunlight thanks to its improved maximum brightness, the S23 Ultra screen still comes out on top for me in average everyday use, not only given its sheer size, but what I simply see as a superior screen when doing things like gaming, which I know gaming was a big talking point on this year's iPhone given its new A17 Pro processor with more graphics performance. However, when looking at a game like Stardew Valley side by side on these two phones, there's no doubt in my mind which phone I would rather be playing games on, with the more saturated colors found on the S23 Ultra, in addition to the non-intrusive hole punch cutout. And beyond the screens themselves, we of course have the S Pen, which helps significantly when selecting small areas on your screen, in addition to it sometimes being the difference maker between whether or not you can even see what is happening on screen. And unfortunately, in typical Apple fashion, I ran into some limitations when it comes to their port. Even though it is a Type-C port now, I tried 3 Type-C mobile controllers with this iPhone, 2 of which did not work at all, and the third only works for 5 to 10 minutes before needing to reconnect and exit your game, only for the same thing to happen again. And I saw that other people are having this same issue as well, so as much as I love this iPhone being so lightweight and more powerful on paper, I still cannot recommend it if gaming on your phone phone is a priority for you. However, the addition of that Type-C port is not all doom and gloom, as it has been so nice to no longer have to worry about needing multiple cables to keep my two phones and other devices charged, but the opportunities opened up with other accessories has been equally as impactful, with examples such as being able to charge my smartwatch directly from my iPhone, make use of my noise-canceling Type-C earbuds when I'm looking to have a wired connection, and of course being able to quickly transfer files to and from with an external drive. So this is definitely a step in the right direction for making the most out of your expensive investment, since the S23 Ultra is still the go-to choice for getting the most out of your phone, with advantages such as the aforementioned S Pen, which I use every single day when daily driving this phone, being able to wirelessly charge other devices from the back of the phone, no Type-C port necessary, faster charging from its Type-C port with 45 watts getting you topped up in about an hour or so, opposed to the 25 watt charging on the iPhone still taking a couple hours to get fully topped up. There are still a ton of little everyday benefits on my S23 Ultra that arguably make it a more worthwhile investment, but there's something to be said about this new 15 Pro Max feeling so lightweight and comfortable to hold, and offering enough of the essentials to potentially make it the better choice for some out there, even if it doesn't have every bell and whistle. And for what it's worth, the addition of the action button is a great sign of Apple allowing you to get more out of your smartphone in a way that best suits your needs. For me personally, having the ability to open my camera app and be ready to record with my preferred settings is such a nice quality of life benefit on the iPhone. For what it's worth, a double press of my S23 Ultra can also open up the camera just as easily, and this feature has been around for how long at this point, so this action button doesn't necessarily give the iPhone any additional points in this particular matchup. And at this point in the video, we know that at the end of the day, it can often be the cameras that decide which phone comes out on top, and like I said at the beginning of the video, the iPhone's new 5x optical lens is a surprisingly impressive improvement over what was available before, and the feature set of the new iPhone camera system is actually pretty similar to what's been available on the S23 Ultra and other Samsung phones for a while now, mainly when it comes to managing your zoom, with a great viewfinder to give you the perspective needed to properly capture things from far away, even if it can't extend as far as the S23 Ultra's 100 times zoom. Being able to zoom 30 times on this iPhone and do it comfortably and effectively is something the iPhone desperately needed, so I'm so glad to see the added versatility here, in addition to having more control over the versatility in real time, with the iPhone being able to freely switch between its various lens options as you are recording, opposed to the S23 Ultra being locked to whatever lens you started to record with and only having the option to digitally zoom in and out from that point on, forcing you to end your recording to switch to something else, which makes it feel a little less intuitive despite having more capability from a hardware perspective. Now, of course, the hardware advantage still goes to the S23 Ultra for me personally, as it offers both a 3x and 10x optical zoom instead of the iPhone only offering one middle ground option with that 5x. And the minimum focus distance issue first found on the 14 Pro is unfortunately still here on the 15 Pro. It is very annoying to lose focus when recording on this phone when trying to get close up to subjects. For a point of reference, here's the same shot happening on the iPhone 13 Pro to show what I mean by lack of minimum focus being a problem for me on my 14 and now 15 Pro Max. And this is not an issue whatsoever on my S23 Ultra. As you can see, I can bring the iPhone as close as I want to my S23's camera, and therefore makes it difficult to choose a clear-cut winner between these two very impressive camera systems in their own ways. Looking at the average use of both of these phones, the S23 Ultra has consistently given me great battery life throughout this year. The 15 Pro Max in my first 3 weeks or so of use has also given me multiple day battery life. However, each of these will only last a day if you're going to be extensively using the cameras like I do to film these videos. Of course, there are always ecosystem considerations at play which can heavily influence a decision, as for example, I personally prefer Apple's Watch Ultra compared to Samsung's Watch 6 Classic that just came out, which makes me lean more towards my iPhone to use alongside it. However, I much prefer Samsung's Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra over Apple's iPad Pro, as it is really nice to not only have the continuity of an S Pen on both my phone and tablet, but to also have my written notes synced between my S23 and Tab S9. And then when peripherals like earbuds get involved, it can pull you one way or another even further for the auto pairing and switching between various devices you are using throughout the day. And honestly, at this point in time, as a user of both the Apple and Samsung ecosystems, you are getting a similar everyday experience as far as the interconnectivity of the devices themselves and how well they can work together to help you make the most out of all of your devices. But ecosystems aside, and looking at these two phones pound for pound, it is crazy to think how the S23 Ultra came out at the start of this year, and now 8.5 months later, it is still holding its own against Apple's latest and greatest. And this 15 Pro Max is giving what I believe to be a lot of genuinely useful everyday use enhancements. I think this is the first time I've been this excited for an iPhone since the iPhone 11 Pro Max back in 2019. However, some of the oddities I mentioned earlier, such as the Type-C mobile controllers not working with the new Type-C port, preventing me from playing games, and the poor minimum focus distance on the primary lens, which does not seem to be something Apple intends to address, given the 14 Pro had the same quirk, that ultimately make me lean towards the S23 Ultra in this particular matchup. But I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on this heavily debated matchup down in the comments below. Be sure to leave a like on your way out, and please consider subscribing to the Shane Simons YouTube channel today, since the Pixel 8 is going to be thrown into the mix here in an upcoming video. And thanks so much for watching. Take care.